Hello everybody. In today's video, I am drinking a liquid that is called H2O, otherwise known as water, for my English speakers out there, or for any speakers of any language for that matter. As you can see, I have summoned water. It's one of many peak liquids, as the what do you call it, Gen Zers tend to say on the social media. Weird thing, isn't it? They call it social media, but they're not very social, you know? They're very chronically online. And it's a pretty big deal, I guess you could say. It's everywhere. If you're wondering, yes, English is my first language. It is my native language, you know? Because I get comments about that because I tend to have like a foreign sounding accent to some people. What they really mean to say is that they're fucking British, okay? Like, you don't have to push it. You can just say you're British or Australian. You don't have to just be like, oh, do you speak English? I'm speaking English to you. I am speaking English to you. Now, I know you probably don't see that through the comment sections that you look at or whatever, or when you're looking at the comment section. Just know that I am looking at, or I try to look at all my comments for all my videos and shorts and stuff. And so you're probably not seeing those because, you know, obviously you're not looking through every single comment section that I have, you know? And my phone is slanted. It's actually like, it's like this, but the camera is like right in the middle, so it makes it look like I'm actually centered when I'm not, you know? But that's how that works. That's just how it works, generally speaking. You know, it's on the top. Well, not on the top, but right now, currently on the side, over there, on the right end. And that's how we're going. You know? Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. Human civilization. Human civilization. In today's blog, I have been doing some stuff. I don't know if you could call it a blog per se. You know, I don't try to post too much. You know, I try to post at least once per day. But, you know, I'm not gonna go around and be like, oh, I need to post 9 videos every couple of minutes, you know? Like, I'm not Asmongold. I don't have the ability to just post videos all the time that are hours long for something that could have been 5 minutes. Although I still do like his content. So there's that. I don't really have any serious disorders. I mean, I do have some problems with my memory, but that's mostly just because I'm, like, not in the habit of doing that kind of stuff. But I don't really have any serious or major disabilities that I'm aware of. At least not mentally. Physically, I kind of do, but not really. Not really. You know, I don't really have, like, say, I don't know, what do you call it? Not cerebral. Down syndrome. You know, the disability of the 21st chromosome. Or, as they're more commonly called, retards. Okay? It's not really as offensive as people like to make it sound. You know? But I think the only real people who are offended by the word retarded are people who are not, well, in fact, retarded. and there's a spider on the fucking wall. Bastard. The wolf spider. I don't think it's a wolf spider, but still. It's a weird looking bastard. That's for sure. You know? And people ask, why do you swear in your videos? Why do you say swear words? I got approval by a gypsy, okay? I had approval by a gypsy that one time. And if you're wondering, yes, gypsies are native Europeans, at least to my knowledge. You know? That kind of thing. But the weird thing is they all think that they're brown for some reason. I don't know where that stereotype comes from. But yeah, the word gypsy is over where I live is not really that fucking offensive. Okay? It sounds offensive until you use it to a gypsy and they're like, oh yeah. Well, at least an American gypsy. If you use that in Europe, you could be arrested for a hate crime, you know? That's how different it is between American gypsies and European gypsies, because American gypsies have only been around here for like a few hundred years, you know? European gypsies have been there for thousands of years, you know, in Europe. And so the word gypsy used to be kind of offensive, but it never really fully gained the offensive meaning like it does, say, like again in Europe. But I think it's mostly just because it's kind of like it's just like saying the name, you know, like the name of this group of people. You know, it's not like the N-word. What's up, my fellow N-words, you know? Like, what's up, my fellow N-words? What are you doing today? What are you doing today? I don't know why I keep saying stuff like that. Maybe it's because I keep watching a bunch of, like, Spanish language content lately. Which would make sense since they do tend to talk funny like that. I don't know why that language tends to do that weird sound. That, you know, all the fucking time. But I do that sometimes as well. You know? Like, I'm natural to it because I've had some exposure when I was younger. And I never really quite understood the language despite having exposure to it. I've been working on it for like a long time. A long time. Excuse me. Now I'm doing clicks. The clickers. Those clickers. Oh man, those clickers. We all know gangsters is just a fancy city term for somebody who lives in like a heavily populated place, but for rednecks. You know, like it's just the city version of rednecks. That's what the gangsters are. You know, they gang. They're in a gang. They're a gangster. They're a gang member. Okay. No, I'm not talking about the Crips. The Crips. What do you call them? The Bloods. The Blueberries. I don't know. I don't listen to modern rap. And I don't listen to modern country either. They're basically the same genre now. It's so strange because if you look at it, if you look back when they started to like get the label of rap and country, those two genres used to be very, very, very fucking different. You know, like there were genres like blues or whatever that led to what we now call country, or you know, just what we call country in general. Like it was still country, it just wasn't called that back then because that didn't really start becoming a thing until like the 50s. And even then, it didn't gain that name until like the 70s because of a certain song, you know, that had West Virginia in it. I believe it's called. You know, Take 'Em Home to West Virginia. Like that was the first of like true country, but we haven't had that in a long time. For country music. Rap music it's basically it's just modern hip hop. Like it's like hip hop but worse somehow. Like modern rap is. Because hip hop has been around for a long, long, long time. It only really went mainstream during the 70s and during the early 70s, and because of that mainstream, it gave the birth to rap. And because of this, hip hop gaining popularity during the 80s and especially during the 90s, it became like it became big and mainstream, and then it became this or that, about drugs, crime, and whatever. But back then, a lot of the stuff they said in their music was true. They weren't just saying it just to say it. And maybe you could get away with a fake thing here or there, but you generally couldn't. And then the 2000s came around, and then it was sort of intertwined with, a bunch of other things. And then the 2010s, I would say the height of rap's popularity was the 2010s. And this decade, same thing with modern country. Modern country really got really, really big during the 2010s. And rap recently ended its golden era, and country is just now starting to end its golden era. That's why people are starting to embrace country a little bit, because they're just going off of whatever leftovers are still around, for that genre. Now, I'm not trying to shit on anybody who likes that kind of music. I'm just saying that the one that they got now for like country and rap just doesn't hit like it used to. It doesn't make music. It doesn't really make songs like it used to. Like it's still music. Like any music is really music. That's the vaguest of vague. But to say it's a song, not really. For something that's like 1 minute and 25 seconds long, it's not really that good, Like, what else you want me to say? Like, I feel like, not just feel, but know that my brain seems to, like, want to do bad stuff or think bad things. But if you ask me, it's not really the music itself that makes somebody bad, but it's people who are already bad, who are already doing those kind of things, listening to that kind of music. Why do you think it's so mainstream? It's like they want people to be stupid, when it comes to stuff like that. It just hurts my brain, Like, what happened to, your Tupac Shakur? And I'm not saying every story has to be true, but make actual, like, good rap music, What happened to, like, Biggie Smalls, creators like that? Well, not creators, rappers, if you want to put it that way. Maybe Eazy-E, if you want to call it that. What happened to your, 50 Cent or Snoop Dogg? Like, you don't have a generation's equivalent where it's like, oh, they started off this way and then they became that way. The only exception is Eminem. He's like the only white guy where, like, black people get N-word passes from him, Like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, that's just who he is. And then there was a bunch of other people, like Big L, but he's not as mainstream as, say, Snoop Dogg, for example. But he's big, sort of, ironically enough. That was the big thing. Now it's more Lil this, Lil that. Huh. Yeah, but a lot of the people who made like those type of genres really popular are either dead or they're just not big anymore. Like DaBaby or Juice WRLD or XXX Tentacion. People like that. They used to be really, really, really big in modern rap. And when I mean modern rap, I mean 2010s rap, but they used to be really big in that kind of music. But eventually, a lot of them either passed away or they just kind of like either faded from relevancy, or if they're still relevant, it's more of just like a, oh hey, they said the line, they said the thing kind of joke, you know? Or what's his name? Polio? Polio? Not polio. Uh, Not Pope Leo. No, that's the current guy. Time of recording. No, Polo G. Who the fuck is that? Um, I don't know. I'm not walking to fucking Poland. You know that's some bullshit song. You know. And then there was, oh, they like rap went from giving women something to go off of to basically making them whores 24/7. You know, we went from Return of the Mac to whatever the fuck uh, Ice Spice used to be, you know? There was that, and then there's also the blood red whatever bitch. Like, they're not really women. Like, a women can be respected. Women can be honored, you know? Women can live their full life and be like a mother and be like a daughter and be like a sister, you know? Or be like a friend, an ally, or even a good enemy. These people are bitches. They're enemies always. They're never to be trusted. They're meant for the streets. No wonder why there's so many rap songs that are like, hoes mad, you know? Because it's their own monstrosity. And it's so weird because even though they're making practically junk, unless you're Kanye or something, well, kind of, you know, with the exception of a certain song, you know, NHH, if you know what I mean. But still. Anyway, and by that I mean nigga hell Hitler, but I don't support that exactly because it's a little too out of his particular circle, you know? It's just so fucking insane, dog. The music that they're getting away with, you know, because they call every single musician, every single music player an artist. Generally speaking, when I'm old enough to remember when a music player was called an artist, that was either an insult or a compliment. There was no in between, you know? And generally it meant an insult. But when it was used as a compliment, it was basically you released a garbage song and got away with it, you know? Like, for example, Michael Jackson, he released Girl Is Mine and got away with it. Even if you like that song, a lot of people didn't at the time. And he got away with it because he's Michael Jackson. You don't really have that anymore. And so because of it, they just constantly release garbage after garbage after garbage. And then people, like, either one of two things happens. Either it's hated so much that it's still remembered to this day, like Justin Bieber or Thick of It, or it's so hated people forget about it because they move on to the next thing. Like, I don't think everybody remembers Friday, you know? Like, I don't think everybody remembers fucking, what's that one song called? I really don't remember it. You know, not everybody likes the what do you call it, Macarena or whatever. I wasn't alive for it during that era, but you get the idea. Um, but songs I was alive for when they originally released. Um, I remember when songs like what do you call them? Like, goddamn, fucking Rick Astley used to be really hated, you know, the Never Give You Up. I mean, he has other songs. If you know about it, he has other songs. But, like, at the time, he was really, really hated. Not when it originally released, but more of, like, during the 2000s and 2010s. Because people just got rickrolled so fucking much. Like, it got really, really annoying really quickly. But yeah, any big time song you've ever listened to, there is at least one point in history where that song used to be like extremely hated, you know? Like it's so crazy because when it comes to music, stuff like that, people like, especially if they become really, really big songs, and this is why Michael Jackson also became really, really famous. The songs were hated so much that they became loved, you know? Like, for example, the song Billie Jean, which is Michael Jackson's most famous song, from what I'm told, was hated upon release. It was hated at the time, but it was so hated it became loved because it was just so extremely hated amongst the big people of that era, you know? Because back then, it wasn't necessarily the hate that drove it. It was like, they told you not to listen to it. They told you not to have it. And then people did end up listening to it. And then it became way more popular than originally intended. Where now it's like, oh, if a song is hated, you're gonna forget about it in like a week, you know? Like, people in 2001 genuinely thought their mailbox were going to explode, okay? The motherfuckers really thought their mailbox was going to explode after 9/11. And it's like the only like big widely known canon event of that year. You know, nobody talks about 2000. Nobody really talks about the year after. They just say it's like one big event. No, it was a bunch of shit that came before it, and then they collided all at once with that, and then there were threats and stuff, and for years, literal years, people were in fear, okay? People were afraid for their lives. It came a whole bunch of shit, a bunch of wars had to happen, a bunch of bad things were going on, and even to this day, because of the things that led up to 9/11 and everything that's still going on, we're out of the post 9/11 world, sure, but we're still just now seeing the effects of it. And guess what is one of the effects of 9/11? COVID. Shocker. How is it connected to 9/11? Well, you see, diseases and stuff kept going. And because they were using it as basically a bioweapon, it got more and more and more. And this COVID-19 shit, could have started in 2010. You know, but it started right around 2016 after a couple of years of conflict going on in China for whatever reason. And then as it went on, they started making labs and started doing that kind of stuff in 2016, 2017. And a lot of the lab leak stuff started to get into the diseases. And in 2018, a lot of people started to get really, really sick and it started to become like a really serious issue. And at first, they didn't really pay attention to it because they just thought, oh, it was like, oh, it's just something that we're not going to really have to think about. But then 2019 came around and they shut down completely. It became a big thing. And even then, it took like March or April for the world to really start catching on of 2020 to really start catching on to COVID. And it messed up a lot of stuff. Like, I don't know what country you're from, but the country that I am in, for a while they did let some states have like ease restrictions, But then they just shut everything down. They cut everything off. And for about 6 or 7 months during that year, it just got more and more and more extreme. And then for the last 3 months, it just went super duper hardcore mode, you know? And then everybody started to become online. You know, it started to become a really, really big thing because of it, obviously. And then 2021 came around. And during that year, most of that year, pretty much, we were still in lockdown. You know, it was still kind of stuck in place. And then the last 3 months of that year, last 3 or 4 months of that year, they started easing restrictions somewhat. And then throughout 2022, and also why, you know, digital rates were so high for that time, was because people were more online than ever, and also because people were, you know, wanting to socialize more than ever. And so because of it, we were starting to really start easing restrictions, and most of those restrictions started to get mostly eased, and then pretty much all of the restrictions got either mostly or all cut off through 2024 for the most part. And then 2025 was the true, like, first post-pandemic year. Like, it was truly the first year where no restrictions were being relieved and no restrictions were really going out. At least not for the U.S. anyway. And China, they didn't really start easing restrictions until like 2022, 2023. And even then, they're only just now starting to, you know, really start to ease the restrictions because of just how much power they hold it for it. You know, like, they already had power. Like, it was already a big issue of how much corruption and control that government had. But as soon as they had the pandemic, they had absolute control, you know? They went from having most control to absolute control. And it really just lays on your mind of how, you know, a lot of things can change over time. And it really makes you think. You know, like, it really does. But obviously, I don't know too much about it, other than what I just told you. And it's not because, one guy ate a bat. No, it's because hundreds, thousands, or maybe even millions of people were eating not just bats, but anything that they could eat that had what we now call COVID-19 in it, you know? And that's how it spreaded so easily, and it was like a big thing. And we're only just now getting out of the post-pandemic era. Like, 2026 is the first year that we're officially out of it, you know? At least for the U.S. China is still in their post-pandemic era. They're still, like, in the post-pandemic stages, you know? That's how far they are, you know? Basically, they're in the equivalent of, like, 2021, where they're just now getting some restrictions released. Oh, and by the way, 2020 was about 6 years ago, time of recording, or longer, depending on when you're watching this. So, if somebody was born in 2020 and watching this in 2026, they would be 6 years old. You know? You know, if somebody was born in 2010, they'd be 16. And if somebody was born in 2000, they would be obviously 26, but I think you get the idea. I'm telling you right now, life ain't as bad as they want you to think it is, or as good as they want you to think it is. Like, when you're not very political, they still win. When you're extremely political, they still win. When you're not that religious, they still win. When you're extremely religious, regardless of religion, they still win. If you're not really into sports, they still win. If you're really, really into sports, they still win. Either way, you always lose. You know? If you join with them, they win. If you don't join with them, they still win. Okay? And it's not the Jews. You can clearly see they try and try and try, and they only got themselves one country. I know not every single Jew is an Israeli, okay? I get that. But you have to understand the context of what I'm talking about. The true people who control the world want us to be so divided on this group, could that group control the world, this group control the world, that all they have to do is hide behind the groups that nobody really thinks about or nobody really assumes can actually take over the world. Why? Because, well, they're not going to be thinking, hey, these groups take over the world. They're going to be thinking, maybe it was the Jews or the Irish, you know? They're not going to be thinking, oh, hey, yeah, it's this group, you know, or that group. But my theory, my current theory, is that, get this, Switzerland wants to take Antarctica. Now, hold on. Listen. I'm serious about this one. They really, really want to take, for whatever fucking reason, Antarctica. I don't know why. I don't know how. But they just really do. But my assumption is that they just really want it for, like, military, government, political, and societal and cultural expansion. You know, to expand the Swiss government. Or maybe, just maybe, it's Central African Republic. Look. I know that's controversial. You know, the Ngunda tribe is not exactly one-to-one with time travel. It really gets on your ass every fucking day. Like, man, they say life used to be simple. Weather used to be this way. Da-da-da-da-da. It was never simple. And weather was never really the way you think it was. Maybe it was with weather. I don't know about that one. But life was never simpler in the past. The idea that it was simpler is this whole, like, nostalgia misconception. And it really is just nostalgia. It's like rose-tinted glasses. But basically, they think that the whole world was just better back then. And society was this way. Not exactly. There's a common saying that Gen X made that made them, like, really, like, well known as a generation. But the thing is that during the 2000s, especially during the year of 2000, they developed this saying called everybody hated the 80s in the 80s. Basically what that means is is that through that definition is everybody hated the 80s, or everybody hates the time that they live in until they're no longer living in it anymore, and then all of a sudden, oh, now we care about it. But then you might go, well, what about individuals who never lived in this particular era, or, people who were just not born during that time, that kind of thing. Well, I'll tell you, people like that are not from that time. So because they're not from that time, it's like, why are you talking about it? Unless you're talking about history or something. It doesn't really make any sense to talk about, say, the 1980s, Like, it's so funny when you see somebody who was born in, like, say, for example, I don't know, 2008, Somebody born in 2008 was talking about fucking, oh, I miss the 80s, they had such good technology, everything was good in society. Brother, they had conflict too. Sister, they had conflict too, okay? They were doing wars and shit. They were doing stuff like they do now. It's just the difference is that it was for that era instead of this one. Like, that was their current day. Like, it sounds great, and as a time traveler myself, going back to the past sounds great until you actually have to live in that era. Because once you live in that era, guess the fucking what? Ooh, shocker. Motherfuckers are not exactly what you thought they were. Who would have fucking thought? And language changes a lot. Like, you might not think about it in your day-to-day, but your language, even in, like, pre-internet times, your language would change a lot. And so, and there are just some years I do not go to, like 2016, for example, because it was one of those years where it was, like, obvious that the vocabulary was changing. And so, and also there's just a bunch of canon events that, nobody should really attend to again. Not even a time traveler, And then they wonder why it's illegal to go to that year. But basically, in your day-to-day, even if you speak one language your entire life, say you speak English like I do, you only speak one language, though, your entire life. The way you use your language will change as you get older because you understand it more and more as you get older until it reaches its maximum. You might learn new words, you might learn new vocabulary, etc., whatever. But, like, it doesn't really change much because, it's the same language. But it changes over time in your day-to-day. So what you were talking about, say, I don't know, a day ago might be completely different than what you're talking about today, and it will be completely different than what you're talking about tomorrow. And for centuries, people lived in, like, that day-to-day society, kind of. But then it became, like, thousands of years. Then it became hundreds of years to get really things moving, but it was still a day-to-day society, kind of. But not really, they weren't that advanced. At least when it comes to advancements, anyway. It's not like a day-to-day society where if it's not the current right now, they don't care about it, Because you gotta understand that, it doesn't matter what time you're in. There are people who are living in that era that it is that current day. Regardless if you're in the future, regardless if you're in the past, regardless if you're in the current present, whatever that may be for you. the true current president, by the way. But basically, that used to be the president at one point, or will be the president at one point. And because of it, they view whatever their current now is as the most important time to be alive. You know? Like, someone from 2010, living in 2010, will view their world as, you know, the most important time to be alive. Someone in, you know, say, I don't know, 6,347 BCE will think that the era that they're currently in, whatever time period they're currently in, is the best time period to be alive. Say somebody in 2026, they'll think that because it's their current now, it's the most important time to be alive. You know, everything revolves up until this moment. And then obviously, say somebody from, I don't know, 2130, which is in the title of this video because I got bored, or actually 2136 perhaps, 2130. Anyway, they'll also think that their time period is the most important time. And I know, for those who are time travelers that are aware about this, that 2030 is the beginning of the 22nd century golden age. Okay, every century has its golden age. That's a 25 to 30 year span, you know. And the first 5 years of that span usually start off rocky, and they usually start off like it doesn't seem like it's gonna happen, and then you just have decade after decade after decade after decade, like just a straight up row, you know, for some people, that kind of thing. But for the 21st century, as you know, the golden age of the 21st century, it's hotly debated when it unofficially started and when it unofficially began. But when it officially began was in 2025, early 2025 and it ended late 2055. You know, that 30-year span. So you had the 2030s and the 2040s. You know, things like that. Or actually, let me do the math. Yeah, you had that span, that kind of thing. And for because there's the 80-year span where whoever's in power is just gonna go with that 80-year span. That 80-year span is when it's slower. It still advances, but it's slower. It goes through that route. The end of that 80 years span, at least from what I can tell, that's assuming. Let's just assume it started at ended at 2050, right? Well, that would begin that new age of a copper or a silver age. And during this time, it's 80 years. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that would go to 2030. And then 2035, 2036 would be a more accurate date. You know? Not gonna lie, I'm probably just gonna put 2036 on the video that I have. $110 ago. Not really, but it will detect as 110 years ago if you're watching this specifically in 2036. But if you're watching this in the farther future of that time period, you may not be from that year specifically. You may not even been born or of that generation or of that era, you know. But this is the beginning of whatever, outcompetes the internet. And right now, it's not a clear canon event because the current way of time travel is also changing lately a lot. And I'm speaking from somebody who's from the 21st century, so take this context as you will. Early 21st century, by the way. But, time travel has gotten a little stranger than it used to be, But, obviously, this is all in the past to you, or at least it could be. For all you know, for somebody watching this in the past, this is in the future. This is from the future. Like that one guy I told to watch this back in, what was it? Oh yeah, 2007. 2007. He's a time traveler. He's not best, he's not best like one of my friends, La Caruna. Yeah, she's good. She's good with time travel. And La Caruna, she's starting to get into her prime, that kind of thing. Anyway, yeah, it really gets so complicated, Like it used to be kind of easy, but now it's just complicated because, as you know, in 2130, at least time of recording, time travel doesn't just become fully commercialized for the first time, but it becomes like throughout the universe, throughout perhaps the multiverse one day. I don't know if it will expand that eventually, because I'm not sure if people in the year 10,000 AD, not 10,000 BCE, no. There's 2026, which is the time I posted this video in. And it's AD at the end of the year. That's the main year date. That's that letters that they put on there. Did you know that they have letters? Ooh, shocker. Yeah, once you get past to the year 9999, it gets 10,000. All right, not 1,000, 10,000. So it's a little confusing. But right around that time, that's when everything just starts to become through the multiverse. But even then, we would only just start to understand it, That's when time travel just became fully a part of humans, Like that kind of thing. But, it's not exactly a spoiler on YouTube because it's not really a big thing, my nigger, it's just out there. Just out there. Well, anyway, the alien species throughout the universe and the multiverse will be hotly debated, and when this video gets released, it will be the official beginning of what is now the time-traveling Space Force, okay? Or as you know them, especially if you're watching this in the 31st century, you would know that these people are called the time-traveling military, or the time-traveling guard. Some people call them the time police, but that kind of phased off in the 22nd century, so there's that. And 2026 is the official year that they formed, but unofficially they've been around for thousands of years previous to that, obviously. But because I'm one of the many founders and inventors of the first ever successful time travel into the past, specifically, you would know that, I am actually from the 21st century. So, yeah. Or what they call the 21st century for those who use the Gregorian calendar. Which is the 365 to 366 day calendar, which is where, what was it? February. One of the months get an extra day. Okay, the shortest month of the year gets an extra day during leap years. And yeah, that's how that works. It really makes you think. It really makes you want to go down that rabbit hole. So many things I could have gotten done right now. But I'm talking to you through this video. Ain't that crazy? I don't know. Holy shit, this video is long. But I really do think that, what do you call them? Ghost Peppers is peak. You know that band? I know that band. Not personally, but still. And I'm just looking out my window because it's getting brighter. Do you ever think that maybe we're all in some sort of simulation? I don't know if that's true. I mean, I am a time traveler. I am some sort of guy who goes... Well, not some sort of. I am a guy who goes through the multiverse, or you can call me a guy, I guess, because who knows when you're watching this. You could be watching this the exact same time that I released it in, or that I made it in, that kind of thing. But still. Ooh. May all the gods bless me. And if you're wondering, yes, I am a polytheistic atheist. But how? How can you be a polytheistic atheist? Well, I don't necessarily do it like the way, traditional atheists do it, okay? I lack the belief. I don't totally not believe it, okay? It just means that I'm not like fucking... What's the word? In absolute denial, it's just kind of a guess. I'm just rolling the dice on some bullshit. But there's an infinite amount, okay? Like, there's still somewhat a limited amount with the Hindus or whatever. But me, infinite amount, okay? I just want to do the ones that I remember, alright? There's a God for everything, okay? But doesn't that lose the definition of God? Not really. Because some infinites, as they say, are bigger than others. But I don't know how well this video will age or unage, depending, again, on when you're watching this. But still, yeah. I'm just ranting and 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 ranting. But I want to say this, regardless if you agree with this video regardless if you agree with anything or disagree with anything. Even if it's unrelated to this video. Regardless of what you think about, I don't know, Epstein files or something. Or, I don't know, 1995 LA riots. There's some stuff, you know. I want you to think for yourself. Like, it doesn't matter if your opinion is popular to everyone or no one. If it's the most popular thing or if it's the least popular thing. If you truly believe in something, if you know, not just think or assume or feel like something is true, even if it feels wrong to you, if you truly know that something is the truth, go for it. Okay? That's what your opinion can be. All I'm saying is, I'm not necessarily saying how you should think. I'm saying this is a recommendation. This is what you could be thinking. You know, this is how you could be thinking. Not how you should, but it's not like I'm forcing you to think this way. What I'm saying is, regardless if it's a minority or a majority, regardless if no one believes it or if everyone does, regardless if, you know, if you feel like it's right or wrong, if you genuinely want to believe in something, if you genuinely want to go for it, regardless of who it is, regardless of what it is, or whatever it may be, if you agree or disagree or have neutral thoughts about it, I just want you to think for yourself. I just want you to have your own opinions, you know? I want you to have opinions that are truly yours, okay? Or sometimes not. Sometimes it's okay to be the majority, but only if it's an opinion you genuinely actually agree or disagree with, or thought, or fact, or action, or whatever it may be. But yeah, I think you get the idea. I said all of this just for a big rant. Rant and rant and rant and rant and rant and rant. You know? You go rant, 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 rant. Anyway, yeah. I think the AI, artificial intelligence, has really gotten good lately. And I've seen less AI, but that really just means that there's more of it. You know? Anyway, it's good to get my conspiracy theories out. Well, not conspiracy theories, but my truths, facts, and logic, or whatever. But no, seriously, I do really, unironically, deadass want you to think for yourself. Alright? Alright? And form your own thoughts and opinions and facts or whatever it may be. Or maybe even change things you may have agreed or disagree with. You know? Like, it may turn out you may agree with this thing, or it may turn out you may disagree with that thing. Or it may be neutral on that opinion, or nothing at all, or something else completely unrelated, or maybe another thing, you know? That's just how that works. It is whatever it is, you know? Well, anyway, I gotta wrap this video up. But yeah, I gotta wrap this video up. So, whatever you think about it, whatever opinions or thoughts you have, I'm a free speech guy, so I guess I'll allow it. Anyway, that's up to you if you want to make a comment, you know? That's up to your mind if you want to make a video, about this entire thing you just fucking saw. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much all I got today. And again, you can comment whatever you want. Well, that's if you're going to comment. And, yeah. After all of that said and done, I am out of here. Okay? Okay? Alright. Bye.